Hello, everyone. My name is Christina Liu. I'm a mental fitness coach. Thank you so much for joining me on this day 14, week 3 of this video series on building mental fitness. Now, yesterday I talked to you about the essence of the sage and also the 5 sage powers. Today, I want to get much deeper into the first sage power, which is empathize. And the reason I want to do that is because, first of all, this is the foundation for all the other sage powers, this ability to empathize with ourselves and with others. And then also in my work with my coaching clients, and even Shirzad Shamin talks about it in his work with his coaching clients, so many of them, their weakest sage power out of the 5 is this empathize power. And this is true for a lot of CEOs, executives, and sometimes I find actually the more high achieving someone is, the weaker their power is to empathize, and especially the power to empathize with themselves. And why is that? Because for many of us, the way that we have motivated ourselves is by beating ourselves up when we don't perform to a certain level or we don't get to a certain standard. And so we criticize ourselves, we beat ourselves up thinking that it's good for us. That's going to motivate us to keep going, to keep accomplishing and keep achieving and performing better. However, this is a very unsustainable way of motivating ourselves because, what are the chances that we're always going to perform perfectly? We're never going to fail, never going to make mistakes. So if you're only able to empathize with yourself and love yourself when you have done everything perfectly or you have achieved, then this is just a very vicious cycle that when you achieve or when you're perfect, then you love yourself, then you empathize with yourself. But when you don't, that's when you create this, you have stress within yourself, you have shame, you have guilt, you don't love yourself. And so that's why most people don't have sustained happiness, because they don't have this empathy for themselves. And when I talk about empathy for yourself, I'm talking about true unconditional love. All right, let me say it again. Empathy for yourself is about giving yourself unconditional love. So this is not the kind of love that you've been giving to yourself, which I think most of you have, is, oh, when I perform or when I achieve or when I look a certain way, then I love myself. But when I don't, then I hate myself, right? Does that sound familiar? Or I beat myself up, or I really have a hard time loving myself when I don't do something perfectly, or I don't achieve a certain thing, or I don't look a certain way, right? So that's what we've been doing to ourselves. And that's why we don't have the sustained happiness. And when you're doing that to yourself, it's also very difficult to have the unconditional love for others. And I know many people do say, oh, I have a much easier time to empathize with others than empathizing with myself. That's very typical. And that may be true. However, until you have achieved this deep unconditional love for yourself, that is not based on any condition, whether it's performance or the way you look or the way you behave, you won't be able to do that consistently for others either. I almost guarantee you, right? So that's why all the work, this strengthening the sage powers, it really starts with this ability to empathize with yourself. And what's a good way to practice this? What I find, and what Shirzad talks about in his book, is about picturing yourself. So when you're trying to empathize with yourself, picturing yourself as a child. And you can do this with others as well. You can picture someone else as a child. And the reason we do that is because as children, that's when our sage shines through the most. And this is really helpful if you're doing it for yourself. Get a childhood photo out and look at that photo and see what is the essence that you see there. Because what is the sage? The sage is our true self, is our essence. So if that's the case, that means we were born with it. We were born with that beautiful, magnificent essence. And sometimes over the years, we forget it. Right? We cover that essence up with the saboteurs. But the saboteurs are not the real us, but it's a story that we made up, that by having these saboteurs, we're going to be able to survive more and we're going to be able to be loved more. But that's all a lie. Is who we were when we were born, that essence, that's really who we are. And that being is so much more magnificent and so much more lovable than the saboteurs that we have created over the years. And let me just tell you a quick story of an analogy. So there is a Burmese army that invaded Thailand. This is in the 1700s. And when they invaded Thailand, they went to this temple and they looted everything. They killed all the monks, and they took basically everything that was valuable. But they left some things that they didn't think was valuable. And among them was this giant Buddha statue that was covered in plaster. And now 200 years later, this is 1955, when the monks in the temple were about to move this plaster giant Buddha statue, they accidentally damaged it. And they found there's actually gold inside the plaster. And then they started chipping it away until they found that actually this entire Buddha statue is made of pure gold. So it's actually 5,000 kilograms or 12,000 pounds of pure gold Buddha statue. And when they remember back on why the monks would do that, it's actually to protect this really big treasure against threats and dangers and this potential invading that would happen. And so that's what you've been doing with yourself. Inside, deep down, all of us are that beautiful sage, that pure gold sage. But over the years, you have been covering it up with a plaster to protect yourself against threats, against dangers, against challenges in life, that are both emotional and physical, because in the eyes of the child, the world is quite dangerous and it needs to be protected. And none of this is conscious, but unconsciously the child is thinking, how can I better survive? And these saboteurs are basically survival strategies. Like, if you're a hyperachiever, that's how you survive. If I achieve more, I'm going to get more love, and therefore I'm going to be able to survive more. Or if you're a stickler, if I'm more perfect, then I'm going to be more loved and therefore have a better chance of survival, etc., etc. Right? So what I want to say is, you have that pure gold inside you, and you were born with that. It will never go away. It's always been there, and it will never go away. So now it's about time that we chip away the saboteurs that has been covering us up and let the world see this gold, this pure gold, beautiful, magnificent self that you are. And so that's why we do work, both through gaining insight as well as through practices. And so what I talked about, the PQ reps, focusing your attention for 10 seconds on a physical sensation and out of your mind chatter. So over time, you're going to be able to chip away these saboteurs and really let your sage, the gold sage, shine. All right, so I'll leave it here for today, but I will link a TED Talk that Shirzad Chamine has given. And he opened up this video by saying, I'm absolutely and completely awesome, and I love and adore myself. So that's the point I want you to get to, is to be able to say that to yourself every single day consistently. And I know at first it might seem unnatural. It may even seem like, self-serving, narcissistic, but it's not at all. It's about putting that oxygen mask on yourself first, because unless you're able to do that, you're not going to be able to give that to others on a consistent basis. And you're absolutely not going to be able to give it with joy, with happiness and peace. All right. Thank you so much for watching today. I really hope you come back tomorrow, where I will talk more about 2 other sage powers, which are explore and innovate. All right. Thanks so much. And I would love to hear your comments and feedback and questions. And I hope to see you tomorrow. Take good care. Bye.